Welcome to part 6 of chapter 5. In this part we will talk about controlling scope. So scope control involves controlling changes to the project scope. Some of the goals of scope control are as follows. First of all, influencing the factors that cause scope changes. For example, if you deviate from your original scope, you need to analyze the factors that led to this deviation. Is it because some of your team members lack time? Is it because they lack competence? Is it something that is beneficial, that scope change? Is it something that will help you the project succeed? Or if it's something that will actually increase the chances that your project will fail. So you need to analyze and influence those factors that cause scope changes. Also, you need to make sure that changes are proposed according to procedures developed as a part of integrated change control. It's okay if stakeholders come up with ideas on how to change the scope, how to make adjustments to the functionality of your system, but it needs to be done in a formal fashion. It cannot be like ad hoc. Whenever somebody has a new idea, you just go ahead and include this idea in the scope statement. You need to have a committee that looks at this scope change request, evaluates whether this request is beneficial for the project or not, and then makes a final verdict, whether you're going to go ahead with this change or not. If you decide to go ahead with this change, then you need to manage change. I mean, you cannot just say, okay, let's change it, right? You need to follow through. You need to make sure that whoever is responsible for the change has enough resources, has enough authority to accomplish the change. And at the end, you need to follow up. You need to ask this person, so was this change implemented or not? Otherwise, you'll be just talking and wasting everybody's time. So the ultimate goal of controlling scope is to avoid variance, is the difference between planned and actual performance, right? You plan to do X, accomplish X, or deliver product X within time frame Y using the total budget of Z, and then you have different letters, right? There's a delta between your X, Y, and Z, right? So the goal of controlling scope is to minimize the difference. But again, changing the scope is not always bad. Sometimes you have no choice but to change the scope, but you need to make sure it's done in a controlled fashion that ultimately increases the likelihood of your project succeeding as opposed to increasing chances of your project failing. So some of the best general practices to sum up chapter 5 for avoiding scope problems. First of all, keep the scope realistic, keep it simple, don't bite off more than you can chew, right? You always be mindful of the time and other constraints like financial resources, a human resource that you have. So don't try to boil the ocean. Do a few things right, do a small project right, than trying to do a big ambitious project and failing at it. Get users involved. A very important principle. You need to get everybody's opinion. You need to get everybody's opinion included. It's important for practical purposes because people from different areas of an organization may be in a good position to tell you what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. And it's also a political tool because if you get everybody involved, if you create this impression that everybody's opinion counts, then those people, they become your collaborators as opposed to being your resistors, your enemies, and sabotaging your entire project. Try to use standard technology, standard solutions, standard processes, standard hardware, standard software, because when you're experimenting, when you're being innovative, when you're using cutting edge technology, there's certain benefit to that. You can be the first one to create something, but also it's risky, right? If you're limited with resources such as time and labor and cost, then it's probably not a good idea to experiment because experimentation leads to a lot of waste. And then overall, follow good project management processes. We discussed a number of processes in relation to scope management in this chapter. So following those processes will help you, will help you to minimize variance, the deviation from what you originally planned for versus what actually is delivered. So that completes part 6 of chapter 5. Thank you for watching.